Welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast, presented by Orion Advisor Solutions and hosted by Dr. Daniel Crosby, Orion's Chief Behavioral Officer and New York Times best-selling author. Each week, Dr. Crosby interviews a fascinating new guest on a range of compelling topics, from literature to psychology to financial wellness. To learn more about Dr. Crosby's behavioral finance work at Orion, visit www.orion.com.
Hello and welcome to the Standard Deviations podcast. I am your host, Dr. Daniel Crosby. Quick reminder, if you haven't yet, please go and pre-order your copy of The Soul of Wealth. Getting some great reviews from the couple thousand people who picked up a copy at the recent Orion Ascent conference, and I want you to have yours when it comes out in October. But let's get to what we're really here for. I am joined today by Phil Bray, who is the founder and director of the Yardstick agency. He's in his third decade in financial services with experience that includes advice, marketing, and even the loathsome compliance. He currently leads a team of almost 50 dedicated to helping advisors and planners execute their marketing at the highest level of quality possible. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, you are, I'm going to lose track now. You are one of a handful of people whose work I became aware of through the Humans Under Management conference. So thank you very much to Andy Hart and the crew over in the UK. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it to the conference this year because of some pre-existing engagements, but I'm very sad. I've been twice, and it's really a great event.
It's fabulous. Andy's branching out into South Africa now as well. I got an email about his Cape Town gig coming up relatively soon, and you're right, it's a fabulous conference.
Yeah, I want to go to Cape Town. I've been to London many times. I've never been to Cape Town, so I think that's my next move is to look for a way to attend the conference in South Africa instead. So, but let's jump in. So I want to start with one question around your story. You know, the story of your work and how you got into this work was really interesting to me. You are a former financial advisor yourself. You're married to one. You're married to a financial planner. But your work as an advisor came to a rather, as I understand it, abrupt halt in 2008. Tell us that story and how you got from being an advisor yourself to wearing the hat that you do today.
Yeah, sure. So I started in financial services back in 1995, very product focused, something in the UK called a tied agent, where you were selling essentially the products of one firm. And got made redundant in 98. Worked as an independent financial advisor then up until 2006 for another organisation. Then thought, I can do this myself. The ego got in the way a little bit. Ambition got in the way a little bit. And I started a business in 2006. And we did two deals. We acquired two firms. So I don't know what it's like over there where you are right now, but consolidation in the UK of the market is absolutely right. And we did two deals. The first one in 2007, the second in 2008. And the first deal was brilliant. We bought a bunch of clients, client bank, some AUM. The second one came with staff, that's problematic. Came with officers, that's problematic. And we borrowed a whole chunk of money at a really ridiculous rate, 14%. And then the great financial crisis happened. Markets dropped. Clearly, our ongoing advisor fee, our revenue dropped as well. And the bank called in the loan. The bank called in the loan and said, you're going to sell it to that business over there. And by the way, here's a bunch of personal guarantees for you to deal with. So I was left holding the personal guarantees without the asset. So that was an interesting time. So the business went, the house went, the car went, everything went at that time. And that brought my career as a financial advisor to a shuddering halt. I was left with a lot of things to sort out, needed to focus on doing that. My passion for giving advice at that time had dissipated, as you can well imagine. And I'd always enjoyed making the phone ring and the email ping with new inquiries. It's quite good at it. So the obvious thing to do was to move into a marketing-based role. And while I sorted my life out. So that's how I moved into marketing. I was first head of marketing at a firm that my wife now runs called Investment Sense in the UK. Did that for 4 years. Went to a network in the UK as a way of getting regulated, was head of marketing there. And then we started the Yardstick agency over to January 2017. So that's the potted history of me.
It's good that the events of 2008 didn't cause you to lose your enthusiasm for the industry. You still had a bug. You still wanted to work in the industry, even though you had been kind of bitten by the events of the great financial crisis.
Yeah, I think there were certain bits of it that I quite like to leave behind. And I learned a lot of lessons. Don't sign a personal guarantee. Yeah. Don't trust lawyers. Don't trust business turnaround experts. But nobody died. The sun still shone. The sun still came up. Kids still loved me. And it turned out to be a good thing because I think the Yardstick agency is now a much stronger business because of those lessons I learned, 15 years ago now. It's a long time. Yeah. So I think Yardstick's a much better business because of what I learned.
Yeah. When you look at some of the great businesses that have ever been built, many of them are built out of the ashes, right? Built during tough times, built as a result of a tough consequence. And yours is certainly proof of that. So one of the things that I love about your emphasis, we're going to turn to marketing now in earnest. One of the things that you talk about a lot that I think is so critical is having a marketing strategy. Now, what I see anecdotally from my own work with advisors is that there tends to be a lot of enthusiasm for tactics. Everyone's looking for a bag of tricks. Everyone's looking for kind of the next big thing. But I don't know if there's a lot of thoughtfulness always from sort of an umbrella strategy standpoint. Can you talk about the importance of a strategy as a jumping off point and what that looks like sort of practically?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a desire among many firms that we start working with to jump right into some tactics. I did a discovery call this morning with a firm, and during with a discovery call, I'm asking the questions, shutting up and letting them talk. And they were very much of a tactical mindset. We could do this, SEO, pay-per-click advertising, that sort of stuff. Whereas we're here to write a strategy for them. And my view is pretty simple. A good financial planner will uncover a client's goals, objectives, aspirations, whatever words you want to use. And they will write a plan and set a course to achieve that objective, aspiration, goal. So why would it be any different with your marketing? Why would it be any different with your business? So all we're doing when we're talking to financial planning firms, financial advice firms about their marketing is we're just doing for them what they do for their clients. Understand what you want to achieve and then set a course to achieve it. I think there are a few reasons why advisors, planners jump straight into the tactical conversation. I think they believe there's a bit of tortoise and hare going on here. That they feel that if they have to do the strategy piece first, actually, they will work slower. The results will take longer to come. And that doesn't happen in reality. There is a bit of magpie marketing going on. Shiny thing here, let's go and try those things. But ultimately, people who do that will spend their marketing through trial and error at that point. And it might work. The tactic they land on might work. It might be the thing that helps them achieve their objectives. It's luck rather than judgment. So for me, I think it doesn't occur to advisors, planners that they should be doing a strategy. It doesn't occur to them that they should be doing for their marketing what they do for their clients. It's not helped by agencies, marketing gurus, basically flogging product. rather than a plan. And the advice community in the UK and the US is moving from selling product to selling plans. So why not do the same for marketing? Long-winded answer to a short question.
No, it's a very good answer. I'm a little embarrassed that I had never considered the similarities there. So often I think clients present to the offices of financial advisors looking for tactics, right? Growth or value, US or ex-US, this stock or that stock. And it's an advisor's job to go, whoa. Like what are we trying to accomplish here? What's your risk tolerance? What's your time horizon? Like, let's get a sense of the big picture here before we get granular. But people always want to start with the sexy parts, which is the action, right? The action, the numbers, and it makes absolute sense. Like that's a brilliant framing of it. Every advisor knows the pains of a client who is too tactically focused to the exclusion of a plan. All you're doing is saying, hey, you should start with a plan too. So let's now get a little more specific on probably my favorite part of that strategy, which is understanding your ideal client and the psychographics of that client and the niche you want to serve. I think it's increasingly difficult to be a generalist, at least here in the States where there's, 300,000 advisors. What do you do? How do you work with your clients to help them envision their best clients?
So it's in our strategy development process with clients. First thing we want to understand is, what do they want to achieve? What does success look like? Then the second thing is, who do you want to be working with? You can't effectively market your business until you understand who you want to be working with. Now, in some cases, I think that's a target audience. In other cases, it's a niche, as we would say, niche, as you would say. And I think the two things are different. So for me, a target audience is relatively broad, but is more refined than we will work with anybody. So that target audience might be people in their 50s, in the glide path to retirement, people at retirement, people in the early phase of retirement. So for me, that's not a niche or a niche. But you can turn it into a niche by overlaying, for example, geography. A client I was speaking to this morning very much wanted clients in those three phases, 50s, at retirement, and post-retirement. They wanted them within 5 miles of where they live in the northeast of the UK. So that is overlaying a niche on a target audience. We have other clients where they absolutely do have a niche, whether it's divorcing women, footballers, cricketers, barristers. And that niche makes marketing easier. There is an efficiency of marketing to a niche. The gut feel of some people, potentially those who dive straight into tactics, is that we can market to anybody. Yeah, the bigger the audience, the more successful we'll be. I just think the opposite is true. Providing your addressable audience is big enough for you to achieve what you want to achieve, then concentrating on a niche will absolutely make your marketing easy. And look at Yardstick. We've gone from 3 people to 50, targeting a niche. And it helps you, going back to your question, if you have that niche, it makes understanding them so much easier. Their 3 a.m. moments. What wakes them up at night? What motivates them to get them out of bed in the morning? What are their values? What are their beliefs? You need to understand all those things so you can communicate to them. So I just think it's massively important. And it's why it's the second thing we do during our strategy development process.
So nine times out of 10, I'm going to give British English the advantage. But in America, we say niches make riches, and you can't say niches make riches. So I say advantage America on this one. But
I think you might be right there. I'm desperately trying to find a word right with niche, and I can't work one out.
No, but so I saw this that you talked about it in your own business. I mean, you're a very niche marketing agency, right? You work with financial professionals. I saw this in my own career, right? I mean, my PhD is in clinical psychology, and when I got out of college, I was very broadly, call it a business psychologist, working in the corporate sphere, but not specifically with finance. And it was only when I began to specialize many years ago in working in behavioral finance, in financial services, that my career really took off. And it's counterintuitive. I mean, we can say this till we're blue in the face. Many people smarter than us have said this, but it really is counterintuitive. It seems like you should cast as wide a net as possible. And that's just not the case. Like we work with or are friendly with people who work with midwives. A friend of mine is an advisor who works specifically with midwives. We have a client who works with yoga practitioners and first responders like cops and firefighters. And these seem like really niche groups to serve. And yet they're all extremely successful because they, like you said, they understand that 3 a.m. moment. They're able to create content that is so specialized and meets a real need. So yeah, drilling down and understanding that segment is all important. How important within this, how important is it to have an affinity for that group or to have some sort of tie? Because like if I looked at a graph or, if I looked at a piece of research that said, hey, midwives are the group you should serve, I don't have any special disdain for midwives, but I don't have any special affinity for midwives either. Does it need to be some sort of practical tie, or can it be sort of surgical and clinical and just say, hey, look, here's a need that needs filling. Let me go do it.
I don't think you need to have it. I think it's helpful to have it. So when I'm doing sales calls, when I'm writing strategies, when I'm talking to clients, I can talk in their language. When I'm doing an initial sales call with prospects, I talk about the fact we have two ways of working with us. There's an execution-only way of working with us, and there's a strategic way of working with us, which is analogous to the financial planning process. So they get it, and you're immediately talking their language. I can think of, we got a client who, as I say, specializes in divorce, and they have been through a divorce process. So they can empathize with their clients. Footballers, we've got a few planning firms who specialize in working with footballers. And a good proportion of those have played professional football at a certain level. So I think is it necessary? No. Is it helpful? Absolutely it is.
Are there enough soccer players to support multiple advisory firms?
Yes. And they earn so much money you don't need many of them.
That's a great point. So, one of the services that the Yardstick agency provides is that you create content on behalf of your clients, right? I think that AI, we're already seeing this. One of the first areas to get disrupted for financial advisors is going to be content creation. There's still kinks to be worked out. Sometimes Chat GPT and the like will just hallucinate research studies and things that don't exist, as I've found out the hard way. But it seems like we are entering a place where, first of all, the rise of AI is going to make content creation much, much easier. And it's a little depressing, candidly, to think we're going to be getting a lot of sort of warmed over generic content. I see this kind of warmed over mass-produced boilerplate from some of the really large, especially wirehouse bank type advisory firms they'll create a piece of content that is inevitably kind of middle of the road and uninteresting, and then they'll blast it out across their 15,000 advisors all at once. And so on some Tuesday at 2:00, suddenly my LinkedIn feed is, 100 of the same article. When you're thinking about creating content in this sort of new world order, right, where you've got this highly correlated mass-produced stuff on the one hand, and you've got AI on the other hand, for content creators, where is the sweet spot and what should they be thinking about as they try and create content in this new world?
So I think there's two things at play here. And we've got to balance out content production and content promotion. So AI right now, you're right, it writes pretty bland content. It's very vanilla, it's very middle of the road, it's very neutral. Just put aside the need to fact check it. And if you're fact checking it, by the way, you've got to have a certain knowledge to be able to fact check it and work out what's right and what's wrong. As I was saying, I think content that AI produces right now is bland, dull, uninteresting. I am less impressed with the content that AI is producing right now than I was 14, 15 months ago. Now, that's going to change. AI is the worst it is ever going to be right now when it comes to writing content. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. And I think AI can help with ideation when it comes to producing content. It can help with research. But can it get that empathy? Can it get those little flourishes in the writing that really elevates content above the 6 out of 10? And I think it points to a wider problem that advisors, planners will too often pigeonhole the kind of content that their clients want into investment economic updates. Whereas all the research I see, clients are not very interested in that. We've got a firm in Bristol that we work with in the UK, down in the southwest, and we run their newsletters. We post 4 articles in a month. The 4th one is always an investment update. It's a big call-out feature box. Always the 4th most popular. The other 3 are always more popular. So AI will do what you tell it to. And I think a lot of people are telling it to do the wrong thing right now, and to do things that are easy, that are safe, that are neutral. For me, really good quality content from advisors to consumers, advisors to their clients. Yes, it does the personal finance piece. Yes, it does the financial planning piece. It goes wider than that. It gets personal. It talks about what's going on in the firm. It talks about what we call hatches, matches, and dispatches here in the UK. It talks about what's going on in the firm, what staff are doing, what staff are interested in, getting really personal. Doing some lifestyle stuff as well. I'm not talking about turning your financial advisor newsletter into tap level Vogue or something like that, but getting some lifestyle stuff in there that is maybe linked to financial planning messages. But it's just the sort of things you don't expect to get from your financial advisor. Surprise people a little bit. And then you've got the whole promotion side of things. There's an imbalance. People think that once they've produced the content and blasted it out once, maybe put a post up on LinkedIn, that's it. It's not. The balance between content promotion is wrong at the moment. So production's up there, promotion's down there. It needs to be the other way around. Ross Simmons. Do you know Ross Simmons on Twitter? Ross is fabulous. And he's just launched a book right now talking about the importance of creating once and promoting forever. And that's going to become even more important. If the world is going to get noisier, and that noise is bland, neutral, 6 out of 10 content, then the content producers who win are going to be those people who know how to promote their content. So whilst AI potentially in the future might solve one problem, it's only going to create another by making things much noisier. And as I say, it's those content producers who understand the balance between production and promotion and promote it forever. They're going to be the ones that win this.
It's always interesting to think, like you said, it solves one problem. Okay, so it's sort of streamlined content production, but now content quality drops to 6 out of 10 in aggregate, right? And so now content that is personal, content that has an opinion, that has the thumbprint of its creator on it, is now standout. That's always been the case, but I think it will be increasingly the case as AI starts to take over. And, I love what you said, because I'm not a Luddite. I'm not scared of AI. I don't think advisors should be scared of it. But when I was writing my new book, it's 50 essays on money and meaning. And there was a formula for each of the essays. It would begin with some sort of anecdote, and then it would share some of the psychological research, and then it would have some application points like, here's a story, here's the research, here's what you do about it, right? Times 50. There were certain chapters where I would go, I don't know what is a story. Like, I can't call to mind off the top of my head a story from history that demonstrates the principle of diversification, right? So what's a story from history that, that sort of demonstrates the idea of the hedonic treadmill? Like, nothing's coming to mind. AI was brilliant at pointing me in a direction, right? I wore ChatGPT out, giving me suggestions for strings for me myself, right? And for writing that I would then later do myself. Use it to facilitate the process. Don't let it become the process, right? So you were kind enough to send me an introductory video where you told me some about your firm and what you do. And I hope I'm quoting you right here, but one of the things you talked about was how your team creates award-winning websites. You've won the bulk of the awards in the UK for creating great advisor-friendly websites over the last couple of years. And you said, tell me, this is the part where I may be misquoting you. Basically, by the time a client reaches out to you through your website, the decision is 70% of the way made, right? They're 70% of the way along the path to hiring you, having sort of thoroughly vetted you online. You're an expert in this digital journey. Talk to us about what the path looks like from, hey, I need an advisor, to someone arriving at your digital doorstep.
Sure. That stat comes from They Ask You Answer by Marty Sheridan, the call guy over in the States. And the stat goes, 70% of a consumer's buying decision is made before they meet the salesperson. So in this case, the advisor, the parent. And it's because, I remember this slide when I presented back in Humans Under Management back in 2019. Sat between someone becoming aware of the fact that I have a problem or an aspiration, what we call a trigger, the trigger for seeking advice. Sat between them becoming aware of that trigger and this firm that might be able to help, and then taking action, sending an email, picking up the phone, is Google. And we Google everything these days, to the point where we first meet, or consumers first meet an advisor or planner on the Google search results page, and they start to get to know the planner and on their website, and all the way along that journey, that digital journey. And bear in mind, that's only a 2-step journey. They can click anywhere on the blue links on a Google search results page. They are filling a mental balance sheet in, like this, like this, like this. Don't like this, don't like this, don't like this. And they weigh up that balance sheet and think, right, this is the firm for me. I'm then going to make an inquiry. So let's take a referral. I think it's not controversial to say that the best type of new inquiry is a referral from an existing client. So if I met for dinner on a Friday night with a couple of friends, and I'm thinking that I need some help. I'm feeling out of control about my retirement. I'm feeling disorganized. It's making me feel uncomfortable. Chat to one of the friends and say, who's your pensions person? Who do you use? They give me a name of their advisor, the firm. I probably put a note in my phone or put you Google them on my phone. The other person I'm having dinner with gives me another name of advisor, another name of different firm. So I do the same. I just jot down those details. Now, time's gone by prior to Google. When I first started in financial services, I'd have probably waited till Monday morning and just picked up the phone for one of them. Whoever answered first, I'd have probably booked the meeting with. So it's quickly potluck who I ended up with. But now, though, between awareness and action is Google. So when I wake up the next morning or over the weekend, I'm going to search for these firms online. I'm going to Google them. I am going to hopefully find them. It's not always the case. There's sometimes been a friction, especially in financial services, where a lot of the names are fairly similar of these businesses. It can be a bit of friction trying to find them. But assuming I find them, get the Google reviews coming up, the 10 blue links, I'm going to click around there. I'm going to look on their website. So that digital journey, we call it at Yardstick the inquiry equation. And it can look in many different ways. So referral plus Google search plus web search equals inquiry. It could equal driving past somebody's office on a daily basis until I move in market. And only about 3% of people are in market at any one time. And at that point, I think, right, now I need to look the firm up online. So the equation there is driving past, Google search, website. Most of the time it ends up at the website. So it's just so incredibly important that we're helping advisors impress people on that digital journey, because it's where competition happens. And that competition is invisible, it's silent, the advisor's got no right of reply. It's just incredibly important. And the message is starting to get through, but not fully got through yet.
You know, given how significant that middle portion is, the digital portion, aside from the website itself, you know, which obviously there's best practices there that we won't get into today, but, you know, aside from having a sharp, easy to navigate website itself, what other sort of digital resources do you find are often overlooked, and what could advisors do to have a better digital presence outside of this sort of the obvious, the obvious notion that your website should be tight?
So I'd go a step before then, and I think the first thing is to make sure you are visible online and people can find you. So I was with a firm today in the UK called Aspire. There are 8 Aspires on the first page, 8 different Aspires on the first page of Google. And that creates some friction. It's hard for people to find the right Aspire. So the first thing is to make sure people can find it. The second thing, I believe, is to impress them immediately, making sure you dominate that Google search results page so all the results are about your business. Make sure the Google business profile is fully completed. Too many people completed it 10 years ago and have forgotten to go back and update it. And then make sure you focus on building a profile of positive Google reviews. We see so many firms with no Google reviews, or even worse, one Google review is actually worse than none. Because you're highlighting the fact that this is where Google reviews go, and we're only good enough to have one of them. Whereas if there's none there, people might overlook. So for me, I think to answer your question, I'll go a step back. Make sure you're visible online, and then make sure you're impressing them in that first interaction with those Google reviews. And I know Google reviews over in the US have been historically harder. It's getting easier, as I understand it.
It is. So we'll turn to your website now. I spent a little time on your website, which is of course beautifully done. And, you have a nice list of core values that's prominently featured on your website. And just as an aside, I found that a very appealing thing, right? If you're trying to get to know a business, it's nice. You had sort of a slideshow of your core value. Your number one core value as a business is that you share knowledge freely for the benefit of advisors. That's what you're doing here today, living, practicing what you preach. I think some advisors who, let's face it, are used to getting paid very well for the advice that they administer on a daily basis are reticent to get on social media and share tips for free, right? It's like, look, I get paid well to do this. Who are you to tell me to go out on a public domain like a Twitter or a LinkedIn or wherever and share my best ideas and my best practices for free? Make the case that makes sense for advisors if you believe that it makes sense for advisors.
That completely makes sense for advisors. And it makes sense for a few reasons, I think. The headline is, I've always taken the view, right back to when I moved to head of marketing and investment since 2010, even before then, to be fair, was that you should give away information for free and charge for implementation. If the information away for free, charge for implementation. Just accept the fact that some people are going to do it themselves. They're probably going to do it themselves anyway. And when I was an advisor, DIY clients, people who wanted to DIY, were really difficult to work with from an advice perspective. Just let them go off and do their thing and accept they're not in your target market or your niche. And if you give information away for free, the benefits are huge. First thing, you position yourself as an expert. By giving that information, you position yourself as an expert. You also position yourself as somebody who is a guy, someone who is prepared to give, not necessarily in the hope of receiving, but there is reciprocity there. So if you're positioning yourself as an expert, if you're positioning yourself as someone who is on the side of the consumer, what's not to love? Why wouldn't you do it? And marketing becomes so much harder when you're trying to keep things close to your chest. If you look at the stuff we've got on the Yardstick website, we don't paywall we don't put a gateway in front of anything. We've got some scorecards on our website where people can go and, the latest scorecard we put on allows financial advisors, financial planners to rate their website, score their website on a variety of criteria. And yes, you need to leave your name and email address, not only so we can send you the report, but we don't put a gateway in front of any content. And personally, I wouldn't gateway almost on almost any content, because the benefits of giving it away for free are just huge. Massively outweigh any danger of giving it away, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I like your positioning there. For those who are listening, you will have heard me recommend Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, many times. But, he's talking about at least 2 of Cialdini's 6 weapons of influence, right? You're positioning yourself as an authority. You've got that reciprocity. These things are powerful predictors of people wanting to do business with you and following through on your best advice. So, yeah, I think the world is better when we're giving away that information and then charging for implementation. So the last formal question before I get to a silly one, we talk at every conference about this sort of perennial problem that advisors are so routinely fired by the non-CFO spouse if one of the partners dies. And we also know that we as an industry have trouble reaching the next gen. So if the parents die, the next generation tends to move on and either DIY or hire a new advisor. If the more financially minded spouse dies, the sort of non-CFO spouse often fires the advisor. Does marketing in your area of expertise have anything to offer this? When we talk about reaching that next gen, when we talk about reaching people who aren't naturally interested in or engrossed in the planning process, does marketing have anything to offer there?
Yes, I believe it does. I think, let's focus on the next gen. So what the children and grandchildren of advisors' clients. So I think this is a problem in the UK, clearly a problem in the US. But I think the first thing we need to do is recognize that we can't or shouldn't try and shoehorn the children and grandchildren of our clients into the same proposition and pricing model that works for their parents or grandparents. If I am a 70-year-old, I am interested in different things than my children. I'm interested in estate planning, wealth preservation, income, etc., etc. If I am that child at 35 or 40, what am I interested in? I'm interested in debt, mortgages, protection, comparing employee benefits when I move one job to another, lifestyle planning. Can I go freelance? Can I start a business? I'm into asset accumulation. So I'm interested in different things. So I think the first thing to recognize is that the value proposition is very different to a 70-year-old than it is their children or grandchildren. We also need to recognize that the pricing model probably needs to be different as well. Because here in the UK, most advice firms still charge a percentage of assets on an ongoing basis. Someone in their 30s has fewer assets, percentage isn't going to work so well for the firm. And then communication preferences. How the parents, the grandparents might prefer face-to-face meetings over a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. The children might prefer shorter, punchier Zoom sessions like this. So I think the first thing we've got to do is get pricing, the proposition, and the communication right before we even trying to start marketing to them. Then I think if we're talking about this wealth transfer, I think the advisors have got to get close to the children and grandchildren. And that starts by getting the clients to introduce them to the children or grandchildren, start communicating with them to start adding value, giving information away for free to these children, thinking about how they put it in front of them, maybe using WhatsApp rather than email, running events, bring your clients and the clients bring their children, those sorts of events, drop-in sessions. There's all sorts of things that can be done from a marketing perspective to help advisors engage with that next generation or two generations down. So important.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about there is so critical. I think it is seen as cynical because it is cynical when an advisor's first contact with, the children or the grandchildren is upon the passing of the client in question, right? I mean, that can't be the first touch point. It can't be like, sorry about your loss. Now, what are we going to do about this money? That can't be the first touch point. I mean, it seems like what it is, which is a financial play and not a relational play. So it's great to hear that. I think some of the things we're talking about here have some play there. Well, you've been incredible. You've given us a ton to think about. But, when I look at the statistics for my podcast, just over half of our listeners are here in the U.S., which makes sense, right? Which makes sense. But for that 50% of listeners who are American, when I was on your website, your bio is very clever. You've got this whole sort of red or white wine, country vacation versus city vacation kind of thing. It's a very fun way to get to know you and the other people on your team. But your bio talked a lot about cricket. Now, I am a huge baseball fan. I don't know the first thing about cricket, but I'm willing to learn. So if Americans are listening to this podcast and they want to get into the wonder of cricket, where can they learn? And the second question is, as part of this immersion, should I buy a cricket sweater? Like, is that part of the bargain?
Okay. So I've got two loves when it comes to sport. First, ice hockey. My son plays ice hockey. So I love watching hockey. But cricket is probably my oldest love. And I think the beauty of cricket, and it is a beautiful game, is it can be played by men, women, children. Mm-hmm. It can be played by people in their formative years, right the way through to people in their 80s. It can last for 3 hours, it can last for 5 days, and it still can end in a draw. I know for hockey fans, things can't end in a draw, yeah, but it can still end in a draw. It can be played in front of tens of thousands of people in India, or one man and his dog on a village green in the UK. So I think for me, that's the beauty of the sport. There's an entry point and an entry level for everybody. And for you, you've got a perfect opportunity to interact, go and watch a game of cricket. The T20 World Cup, which is 20 overs a side. So an hour and a half each innings. So 3 hours in total. It is taking place in the Caribbean and the US. I think it's in June or July. So perfect opportunity for you to go and watch the best T20 players in the world smash the hell out of a white ball. And in terms of should you get a sweater, absolutely you should. It needs to be white. It needs to be cable knit. Go and Google after this cable knit sweaters. Yeah, white cable knit, you'd look great.
Okay. A white cable knit cricket sweater coming up. Phil, the next time I see you, I'm going to wear it and we're going to toast to the excellent job you did on my podcast. Sir, thank you so much. If people want to learn more about the Yardstick Agency, if they want to gain access to some of these free resources that you talked about, where can they find more about you and your team?
So two places. Go to the yardstick.agency.co.uk website, or come and look me up on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Phil Bray, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to Standard Deviations. If you can't wait till next week for more behavioral finance insights, visit www.orion.com. All opinions expressed by Dr. Daniel Crosby and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of or endorsement by Orion and its affiliates, subsidiaries, and employees. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for legal, tax, and investment decisions. The opinions are based upon information the participants consider reliable.